is intussen iets voorbij 11 and we are going to speak in English, of course. Let me check. All right. We are live today, so I want to make sure that you can hear and see us just perfectly. Maybe you can just indicate that in the chat at the right side of your screen. Just give us a sign that sound and image are working fine. Just put something, drop something in the chat, and then we know that our technical...
All right.
Yes,
good.
That seems perfect. That seems perfect. All right, great. Welcome to this 5th webinar already. We are back after a sunny summer break. And I'm particularly happy today because we have 4 speakers for you. That is Wim Vermeulen. I come back to you very soon, Wim. We have Professor Dr. Gino Verleye from the University of Ghent, Chris Michiels from Unilever, and Niels Janssens from Lano Campus. Of course, I also need to thank our sponsor, which is Media Marketing, for all their support in setting up this webinar. I'm Karen Obdekam. I'm hosting the Bubka webinar series. And Bubka is a full-service agency. Why are we doing these webinars? Simply because we want to share our knowledge and our expertise with you. We are strong believers of the lifelong learning concept. This webinar is all about sustainability. It will take about 1 hour approximately. And after 12 o'clock, we will do a Q&A around half an hour. That means that if you look at your screen at the right side, you have indeed the chat. You discovered it already, I see. And in the chat, you can drop all your remarks or questions regarding what our speakers are telling you today. In the Q&A at 12 o'clock, we will answer a selected amount of number of questions. But don't worry, all questions will eventually be answered. For those who cannot stay, don't worry, we will make sure that you have everything that we say after 12 o'clock as well. Well, I suppose that we just have to get on with it now. First of all, Wim, I want to introduce you. You are indeed the new Director of Strategy and Sustainability at Bubka. I suppose that you do a small introduction and then immediately kick off the webinar. That seems a perfect plan, don't you think?
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much. So, yes, let me see if I can get the presentation start. Oh, yes, there we go. So, yes, so my name is Wim. Very happy to be here. I see we already have 120 plus people, so that's great. That's 124 people that understand that, you know, we need to save the planet to be able to do to continue to do business. So that's great. Welcome, and I am the Director of Strategy and Sustainability of Bubka, also an author of a book on marketing effectiveness, of communication effectiveness, marketing for the mad men and women of tomorrow. I'm a lecturer at the Solvay Brussels School and an advisor to GG Communication in Europe. I'm quickly going to introduce Niels. Niels is a good friend and my favorite publisher, and he's helping us with the book we're going to talk about later on. And then we are very happy to have Chris on this webinar. Chris is the marketing director of Unilever Belux and the founder of Be Better. He will talk about that later on. So thank you, Chris, for being here. Okay. Gino, could you talk a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you very much, Wim. So my name is Gino Verleye, and I teach statistical modeling and research methodology at University Ghent and the VUB, but I'm also involved in lots of projects, continuously on consumer research, more especially on the topic of today, being sustainability. And I'm involved in projects where with predictive modeling, we try to optimize the adoption of new products and concepts. And I'm happy to be here together with you all.
All right. And so Gino and I did some research on the Belgian consumer and sustainability, which we are now going to talk about and which we have written a book about. And so the research question we set up for ourselves, the question we asked ourselves was, there was a great momentum for sustainability before the COVID-19 crisis. And so we were wondering during the lockdown if that momentum would still be there after the lockdown. So we discussed it and we said, let's research it. And so in May, we questioned the Belgian consumer, and the result of this you're going to see today. We have different views on the data. We have a generational view. So because we thought different generation will think differently about sustainability. We have a attitudinal view. So we're going to talk about, Gino's going to talk about the segments. We have the results for North and South, and then we have the national view. Today, we're going to talk about the national view and the different segments. When we launch the book, that's going to be on October 8th, we're going to talk about the difference between generations and the split North-South. The details we're going to share with you today. First, we're going to define the sustainability issue. That's the first thing we're going to do. Then Gino is going to talk about the research methodology. Then we're going to show you there's a real support base for sustainability with the Belgian consumer. It's your next growth engine. We're going to put some timing on that. You can feed that transition and that growth engine yourself fairly easy. We're also going to show that sustainability is a very strong brand preference creator. We're going to talk about something that we see in different industries, that is different tracks. The industry is on one sustainability track and the consumer is another, and there's a gap and you need to close that gap. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to show that for the bottled water industry. And then Gino is going to talk about the segments, the movers, the movables, and the resistors. Very important data for marketeers. And then we're going to suggest some actions to take things forward, to move things forward. Okay, so let's start with the definition of the sustainability problem. It is a systemic problem. So, it's good to understand that, but the bad thing is if it's systemic, then it's really hard to solve it. And the systemic issue that we have is the how we produce and consume products, goods and services. How we produce and consume those is not sustainable, because the way we produce and consume goods and services today gives us two problems. The first one is global warming, which you all know about, and the second one is the social inequality. About social inequality, our economical system, and this has nothing to do with left, right, or politics, but our economical system is good for a few and not so good for the many. And whatever system that is unbalanced will so at the end, the many will rebel, and that's what we're seeing now. And the two are interlinked. The more we have global warming, the more we have social inequality. I'm going to give you some examples of that on the way we produce and consume. If you look at the need of resources that we have, that humanity has this year to produce everything we want to produce, that equals 1.6 Earth. So we all know that we only have one Earth. So needing 1.6 Earth to produce everything we want to produce in a year, that is not sustainable. The other example is on the way we produce things. We invented plastic in the 50s of last century. And since then, all the plastic that we produce since then, only 9% of that plastic waste has ever been recycled. So that's why there is more plastic in the oceans than fish, because we only have 9%. So 91% of all the plastic that we ever produced since the 50s has never been recycled and is there. The other thing is that we, on global warming, that we know that we can't control global warming, but we can manage it. And if we do things right, and the first deadline there is 2030, where we have to halve our CO2 emissions, But if we get there, then we have a chance to limit global warming to 1.5% at the end of this century. Now we all have to know that today we're on a path to 3.7. So to get from 3.7 to 1.5, there's a lot of effort that we need to do. And then on the social inequality, if we put it black and white, every time there's something bad happening in the world, the poor will pay for it. Okay, this is the same thing with COVID. The result of the COVID-19 crisis is that more than 71 million people on the planet will be pushed or are pushed in extreme poverty. So this is a little bit grim, but it's a fact. So we need to share the facts. What it means for business is, this is risk. This is a gigantic risk. So every business needs to understand the risk of doing business and needs to manage the risk of doing business. As Paul Polman says, which is ex-CEO of Unilever, you can't have a healthy business on a healthy planet. So, and for the different stakeholders of companies, they all are getting aware of the risk that sustainability presents, and they're all asking CEOs and management of big companies if they are managing the risk. And especially the financial community has found a way to measure if companies are understanding the risk and are managing their risk. And so the financial community looks, of course, at the financial results of a company to define the value of that company. But increasingly, they are also looking at the ESG results. Now, I have a question for you. We have a poll. And the poll, let me see if I can find that. No.
Yes, Wim, we are adding the poll now live. So
you're adding it live.
Live.
Okay. So I have a question for you on ESG, right? Because ESG is E is environment, so S is social, and G is a government. So basically, what it means that investors are looking at your environmental impact. Your environmental impact should be neutral. What you're doing socially, so how do you treat your employees, how you treat the people, and then on the governance, how are you running your company on an ethical basis? And so the question here for you is, and do I have to see the poll?
The poll is live.
In polls. Oh, okay, great. So great, you have found the questions already. Okay, so the question is, my company has put ESG at the core of its strategy. The second is, my company is developing an ESG strategy, and the third possibility is, I've never heard of it. Okay, so let's see how you are responding. It's equally divided, so that's good. Okay, so it's 30% for putting ESG at the core of the strategy, 36 for, we know what ESG is, and we are developing an ESG strategy, and then 32% says never heard of it. Okay, now for the people that are working in a company that and you say I've never heard of it within the company. Okay, so what you need to do is download this presentation after this webinar. Go to a CEO and say to your CEO, CEO, sit down and listen up, because this is really important. The ESG strategy is really important, because what it does is it defines the value of your company on the stock market, because the financial community is looking at your financial results, but also on your ESG scores. And together, those make up for your market cap. So it's really very important that as a company, you know about the ESG scores, and you know what to do with it, and you know how to measure them, because the financial community is looking at you. All right, so that's the first stakeholder. Every company has more stakeholders than just the shareholders, NGOs, suppliers, governments, employees, and consumers. And so today we're gonna focus on those consumers. But before we go into the data, Gino, please explain a little bit the research methodology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wim. So in terms of numbers, during May, we asked about 1,000 Belgian citizens responsible for purchase to, answer a number of questions. In total, it took about 10 minutes to go through the survey. and we were able to do it in a proper, that is, representative way, from a language point of view, but also from a gender point of view, and also from a regional point of view. So we can really say today that we are talking about the Belgian citizens. When you work with a survey of about 1,000 people, it means that you're working with an error of about 1.5% max. And if later on in this presentation, if we will start comparing groups, what we will do is make sure that we work with at least 95% probability to say that what is in the data is also applicable to the Belgian population. What is a nice feature of this project compared to many other marketing research projects is that for age, for instance, we did not stop at the usual 65 years old, but we went on, and we also have people well in their 80s as we listen to their voice. So this is a bit broader than standard consumer research. Okay, back to you, Wim.
Okay, so what it means is whatever we're going to say next is true. All right. So let me start with the support base. So sustainability is really a big topic, and it's really a big topic for the consumer. And the momentum it had before COVID didn't go away. If we ask people what keeps them up at night, what they worry about most, if you listen to the news, you have one, you would think, oh, well, we know what people think about. Well, if we ask them, it's a little bit different. So these are the Belgians saying, one, I'm not at all worried about something, and five is very worried. And what we see is 4.18, that's pretty very worried. That's pollution. The second one is poverty. The third one is spreading of disease. This is COVID. This is the influence of COVID. Then you have terrorism, climate change, the shortage of water and food, then the economy, plastic waste, and corruption. Right? Migration, for example, which is very political, is there, but it's in the top 20, not in the top 10. Okay, so here you go. This is what Belgians worry about. It's all about sustainability. If you look at the SDGs, the SDGs are reflected here. And the other thing I want to share about that, and why the support base is so big, is because if we ask people to their motivation, are you motivated to change your behavior and why, then the first thing they say is, yes, I'm motivated because it's about my proper health. And the second thing is it's about the future of my children and grandchildren. This is deeply human. So I don't know of many products that have this motivational base. Sustainability has. So what you're going to see in the rest of the data is, it's pretty serious. People are looking at businesses and are looking at governments to solve this because they are really worried about, and it's about their own health and the health of their children and grandchildren, which is very deeply motivational. Okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is, it is your next growth engine. Chris will show that later on, that for Unilever, it is the growth engine. But as in general, it is the next growth engine, because if we look at, I'm going to first show this slide. If we look at, do people think that there's going to be a point in time where we're going to all be buying sustainable products? 66% of the Belgian things that will happen within 10 years or less. All right. So almost half things. And that was like, wow, almost half things that this is going to happen within 5 years. So within 5 years, there's going to be a moment in time where all Belgians will buy sustainable. 20% things is going to happen within 10 years. And then you have the 34% who thinks it's never going to happen. Those are the people in denial. We'll talk about them a little bit later. All right. So, but the transition is 10 years or less. And if you have a transition of 10 years or less, then sustainability has to be an important driver of brand choice. And it is, So you have quality and price, and then you have sustainability. And it's more important than emotional connections with brands or innovativeness. Okay, so, and for some industries, and the water industry is one of them, which we're going to show in a few slides, where quality and price is not so very differentiating. sustainability becomes the key driver for brand choice. And then if we go further and we look at, so this is, the transition is 10 years, can we speed up that transition? The answer is yes, and it's fairly easy, because if you want to speed up that transition, then you need to understand, who is really actively changing their lifestyle and who is not. And if we look at that, then you have the 7% not concerned, as the people in denial. Then you have the 80.7% actively changing their lifestyle, so the 20% actively changing their lifestyle. And then you have the 74% that says, yes, well, I make the occasional effort. I am worried about sustainability, but I'm making the occasional effort. So if you want to speed up the 10 years, then you have to focus on these people, on the 74%. You have to turn them into the 20%. Now, if you want to do that, then you need to understand the barriers. What is it that is holding these people back to go from making the occasional effort to actively changing? And if we look at that, these are the barriers, all right? The biggest barrier is my government is too inactive. The second barrier is companies are too inactive. The third one, 67%, it's too expensive being sustainable. Almost half of the people are saying, and I don't really know how to be sustainable, so please give me information. And then 4 out of 10 says, I want to be sustainable, but me, myself, and I'm not going to have any impact. So I'm not doing it because I can't have the impact. We need to become a sustainable world. Now, okay, so the government, let's go back to the government and companies, So basically the message here is, why would I do this effort to become sustainable, to change my lifestyle, if the two most important players that can really have impact on the topic are not active themselves? So this is putting the responsibility where the responsibility is. Now, for companies, there are plenty of companies that have sustainability programs. The only thing is, not all companies talk about that, and they don't talk about that because they are worried that consumers would think, oh, those products become sustainable, so the price will go up, so I will buy other products. All right? That's something that we hear very often from marketeers saying, we are, we're doing plenty of stuff on sustainability. The only thing is we don't talk about it. And there's some ground for it, because almost 7 out of 10 says, yes, sustainable is expensive. So the perception of being expensive exists. Now, we all know that it's not because your production is sustainable that your product needs to be expensive, because producing in a sustainable way is not more expensive than producing in an unsustainable way. It's the other way around. Producing in an unsustainable way has much more negative impact on the planet, and thus is more expensive. But let's go back to that communication. Okay, so this is a cry out to companies. If they are doing, they have sustainable plans, please talk about it, because you're going to speed up the 74%. If people understand that companies are doing it, the 74% will become slowly the 20%. And the other thing is, and it's good to communicate about it, because the second reason why people are not communicating, but brands are not communicating about it, is it's the price perception, but also people will punish me, but people will not. If I have a point of view on sustainability, a strong point of view, and a strong point of view on sustainable issues, then people will punish me. People will boycott me. It's like Nike. People will start to burn the shoes, my products. They will not like it, and my sales will go down. Okay, it's wrong. Okay, so let's see in the chat. Do I see the poll? Karen, help. Where do I see the poll?
Yes, we are putting it live now, if that's okay. With you.
That's great. Okay, so the question is, how many Belgians would boycott a brand for speaking up? And the choice you have is, in your opinion, is that 20 to 40% of Belgians that would say, oh, you have a point of view on sustainability, I will boycott you. I will never buy you again. Is that 20 to 40%? Is that 5 to 20%? Or is that 1 to 5%? Okay, so 1 to 5 is winning for the moment. Anyone for 5 to 20. So the good thing is 20 to 40%, zero. So nobody thinks that it's going to be massive. The boycott is going to be massive. More people think it's going to be 1 to 5%, and 3 out of 10 is thinking 5 to 20. All right, 70, 30. Yeah, you're okay. That's clear. So it's 70, almost 70, 65, 66, and 30. Okay, so let me show you the results. It's less than 3% that people will say, I don't agree with the point of view, so I will boycott them. It's a great driver for brand preference, because if you look at sustainability at the left, 73% say people that have, companies, brands that have a positive stand on sustainability, I will prefer them, I will support them. It's only 24% that says, I don't care. I don't care. They can do whatever they want. I don't care. On the societal issues, same thing. 70% will say, yes, I will prefer them because it's a huge topic and it's the life of my children depends on it. So yeah, I wanna prefer them. 28% says I don't care, and 2% says I'm gonna boycott you. All right, so it's a great driver for preference. So you win twice. If you wanna if you wanna speed up the transition, you can get the 74% into the 20% by just talking about it. It's talking what you're doing, because that's going to be an example, and more people will support that, and talk about it, and talk about it in communicating your point of view. All right, and then the only thing you need to worry about, or you need to avoid, is greenwashing. Greenwashing is, the impact is severe. Okay, more than 50% says, if I know you're greenwashing, I will never buy you again. 48% says, and I will tell others. Only 10% will tell you. So you will not know what's happening. You will not know it. Others will know it, and half of it will say, I will never buy you again. So greenwashing, please don't do it. Then the sustainable value gap. So as I said at the beginning, in some industries, the industry is going one way and the consumer wants you to go the other way. In the water industry, so we did this, we have this sustainable audits that we do for industries or for brands. We're going to talk about that later on. You can also in offers go to, or in the chat, see the offer. And if you click on that, you can get more details about exactly what we're doing with the sustainable audit. But I'm going to show you what we've done, some of the conclusions from the water industry, because the water industry is one of those industries where the industry is going one way and the consumer is expecting something else. In the water industry, every brand is about recyclable bottles. That is where the whole industry is about. Okay. And now let's see, first of all, if people think that industry is moving fast enough. No, 70% says, no, you're not moving fast enough. Okay. Now, remember, the whole industry is on recyclability. Okay. Let's see where the consumer is. What is the consumer saying? What, according to the consumer, should the industry focus on? And 70%, almost 70% says purity of water. Half says biodiversity in the oceans, in water and the rivers. And 35% says responsible production and consumption. So recyclability of bottles is there, all right? And then 70%, almost 70% is about purity of water, okay? And then you say, of course, water is pure. What is this about? What is the consumer about? Well, what is he? So what happens is purity has, a new definition. Purity before was about, filtering the rocks and et cetera, and now it's all about pollution. So purity of water. So let's think about this. This is perception. So you would think, if purity of water is the topic, that the brand that talks about purity of water, that brand that talks about, for the last 20, 30 years, about their water being pure, would be the most sustainable brand in the industry, if the perception was correct. And look, Spa is most sustainable. Spa is talking for the last 20 or 30 years about purity, and it's seen as the most sustainable brand. Okay, the second one is Chafontaine, the third one is Vian, Vitel, and Bru. Okay, so the industry is on recyclability, the consumer is on purity, and Spa wins. Okay, the other thing I talked about, how sustainability is one of the key drivers of brand choice. If quality and price is not very differentiating, then sustainability is a key driver. For the water industry, this is the case. If you look at, the light green is the most sustainable in perception, And then if you look at by today, dark green, then you see there's a perfect link between being sustainable in perception and being, bought today. All right. Okay. Now, if we take that, so that's something we need to be worried about. We need to make sure that there is no gap, and then if there is a gap, we fill it. Um, and that has also to do with the segments that we found: the movers, the movables, and the resistors. And Gino will talk about that now. Gino.
Okay, thank you, Wim. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the data now. So we have identified three groups, as Wim said, movers, movables, and resistors. And you see, for instance, on the top line, these are the movers. So what did we do? About halfway the questionnaire, we asked people about their behavior on 16 sustainability-related items. And what you see in the top line, these are people that are already currently doing all these things. And the y-axis, the vertical axis, actually is measured from 1 to 4. 1 is actually the answer, I will never do that. 2 means I might consider it in the future. 3 means I'm already doing this, but only recently. And 4 means I'm doing this for a longer period of time. And we do not have all the labels necessarily, but I can tell you from that picture, you see clearly two groups. The one on top, these are the movers, and about 4 in 10 Belgian people can be considered a mover. And we see the dark line on the bottom, these are the resistors. About 1 in 4 Belgian people are not really considering, are perhaps considering, or say, I will never do that. And in between, you have a group about 3 in 10 Belgian people who we call the movables. And sometimes they have a pattern where they look very similar to resistors. For instance, they do not communicate and they do not want to convince other people to go to live more sustainable. And also they do not want to eat less meat and they do not want to buy secondhand. But for some other sustainability related topics, they are really moving in the proper way. For instance, in terms of avoiding plastics and opt for more alternative transportation means and buying more local products, they are moving in the right direction. If we look at the next slide, we see some relationships, for instance, with age. We have 4 age groups in this particular study. And from what you see is that actually the movers, the largest part of the movers are the baby boomers. And if you look on the left, you see that in the case of the resistors, both Generation Z, so the younger people and the millennials, the younger adults, they are very well represented within this group. So we have a sort of conflict here because these very young people go on the streets and shout about climate things and that everything has to change. But from a behavioral point of view, well, they do not jump. And I've seen this in other projects. I've recently done a project for FEBIAC, the Automotive Federation. You see the very same thing. The youngest group says cars are very polluting, but they are not shifting to more environmentally friendly cars when they consider to buy a car. And also you see a clear link with gender. As you move from movers over movables towards resistors, you see that we encounter more and more men in this survey. And then finally, one of the same topics that Wim started with, the concerns, and you see very different profiles in terms of how they are concerned about the topics Wim discussed. But for me, the utmost important information from this graphic is seen on the right side. Again, as Wim told you, in the top 5, we see that climate change and pollution is present. So this really means something. People are really concerned about this. Thank you. Wim, back to you.
All right, cool. So we've done this we looked for segments of research because what we want to do in the audits that we do, we want to help on marketeers understand, what are your movers, how many movers do you have within your client base, and who are the movables? Because, for example, for spa, we've seen that the spa has the biggest group of movables. So if they find a way to talk to the movables and turn them into movers, they will win. Okay, almost finished. We have a few suggestions to, I hope the message is clear. the message is more sustainability, please, saying according to the Belgian consumer. There's a few things, actions that you can take to move things forward. For the people that answered, I never heard of the ESG strategy. Please go to your CEO. It's really important that you develop an ESG strategy. But that's something that we can help you in. That's corporate sustainability strategy. 2 is the dynamics. It's really important that you guys understand, the way your industry is going and the way the consumer is going. That the gap is not, if there is a gap there, you can close it. 3, if you understand the gap and you know how to close it, and you and the consumer are on the same path or on the same page, then you know how to innovate. You have to start innovating on the right dynamics. We can help you with that. And then my favorite topic is brands standing up and speaking up. As you've seen, it's a great driver of brand preference. The model that I developed in my book, The Marketing for the Man and Woman for Tomorrow, it talks about that. It talks about how you can speak up and how you can speak up effectively. And then the last thing is for the people that are like, I want to have this slide deck, which is available after the webinar, and I want to share it with all the people inside my company, because we need to do something more, or we need to do something fast. You can simply ask us to have internal webinars for your management and your co-workers. Okay, so that's it for us. Next on the agenda is Niels. As I said, Niels is a good friend and my favorite publisher, and he couldn't be here, so he sent us a video which Karen is now going to roll.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am Niels Janssens and I am publisher at Nano Campus. And on behalf of the publishing house, I would like to thank Wim Vermeulen and Professor Dr. Gino Verleye for both their research on how we Belgians truly think about sustainability, and for their specific call to action to business leaders and politicians. Now, we are honored to announce that Nano Campus will publish a Dutch version of the book by Wim and Gino, and the first copies of this book, titled De Duurzame Belg, will be available by Tuesday the 15th of September. You can pre-order your copy via the Nano Campus webshop, and we will make sure that you will receive the specific hyperlink. Also, UBA, the Union of Belgian Advertisers, will support us to launch the book. They have scheduled a book it session on the Duurzame Belg for the 8th of October. We will provide you with the specifics and further details. Wim, Gino, this is merely a dummy version to your book. I am looking forward to present the final result, the first copies of your De Duurzame Belg. Congratulations on this webinar, and I would also like to thank the people at Bubka who were kind enough to host this session. Thank you very much. Bye.
So that was a video. Wim, you're back to introduce our next speaker. Great.
Okay, great. Okay, so let me introduce Chris. Chris, very happy to have Chris on this webinar. And I'm not being polite, I'm being truthful, because Chris is marketing director of Unilever and founder of Be Better. Now, Unilever is a special company. Unilever, 10 years ago, since they started, but 10 years ago, they launched a sustainable living plan, and they put sustainability at the heart of everything they do. Okay. And so that was inspiring for many other companies. And the other thing that's so admirable about Unilever is they have shown us that the business case for sustainability is positive. Because a lot of companies think about sustainability as a cost. Unilever is showing that sustainability is a profit center. So Chris, please go ahead.
Hey everyone, hope you can hear and see me. First of all, really my compliments to the work done by Wim and Gino. I think their drive on this topic. I really believe that we need more voices in this debate voices with more insights that also inspire people and companies to do better. So big applause from my side, guys, to both of you. Let me see if I can make the slides work. This should move the slides. Wim already introduced me, but I'm Chris. I'm the marketing director at Unilever. It's Unilever, for the ones that don't know it. It's a big multinational with brands such as, you have a selection there, but Lipton, Iced Tea, Lipton, Magnum, and Dove. And for us, sustainability, or internally we call it sustainable living, is truly our North Star. And sustainability is actually the core of the vision, which is to make sustainable living a commonplace. Internally, we call this the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. And for us, this is not something new, not something recent. It's been with us for over 10 years. So it's also not only linked to Paul Polman, who was indeed the biggest driver for the plan, but it has been with Unilever from the start. And for now more than 10 years, it's really what sets the direction and what drives us. And it's actually quite simple to summarize for you what that vision is about. First, to start with, it's the blue line in the middle. We need, on the one hand, to grow our business. It's very clear Unilever is not an NGO. So we do have a commercial plan, and we do need to deliver on commercial targets. But what is extremely important is the second pillar, is that on the other hand, we need to decouple this growth from the impact we make on the environment. And that's that green line that curves down. So that also means that we want to grow. And then if you talk about grow, you can expect using more materials, having a stronger impact, a negative impact on the environment. This is exactly the business model that we want to stop. The business model needs to be that there is growth for everyone and that you actually decrease your impact on the environment. And then you see a third pillar, that's the red line that goes up. At the same time of doing so, decoupling our impact on the environment from our growth. At the same time, we need to have a measurable, more positive impact on a wider society. And those three elements on one slide are actually the core of our vision. That is what you see in every Unilever office. It's what you see in every Unilever presentation. If it's now on a global level or a local level, it always starts from that vision. And then if you think of it the Simon Sinek way on the why, the what, and the how, if we first go into the why, actually the story in the most simple way, why does Unilever has this vision and why are we so strong about it? It's very simple. The world needs it. We have one planet, and to date, as Wim said before, we are actually consuming as if we would have 1.6 planets. But we also know from all the growth predictions that we see in all kind of different categories, it's that we will live, we will produce, and we will consume as if we need, as if we have 3 planets. So actually the situation is worse. And we believe that many companies, but also consumers, now truly start to understand that, and that this is not a sustainable model anymore. So why does Unilever has this vision? Because it is just the planet we live on is in great danger. That is not trying to create drama. We really believe that. That's the why. From a wider perspective, why do we want this as a company, as a commercial business? It's because Unilever also strongly believes that this focus on, say, sustainability is crucial for the future of every company. And I think that especially with this COVID crisis, this has become even more clear. And there's a few elements why we think it's important for a company to start with. Also, Wim mentioned it a few times in his story. The consumer, the people expect that companies play their role. And we see this coming back in every research we put on the table internally. Consumers expect companies to take the lead on this topic. They clearly say that we are part of the problem and that we need to be a part of the solution. And also in a lot of countries, they don't trust the government anymore to deal with these topics and with this issue, so they want companies to step up. And by the way, more and more, the last months and the last year, what we see in the business is that sustainability is less and less of a differentiator for a company. Consumers expect it as a minimum from a company and a brand. So it's really just a license to play, and companies that do not have a clear view, companies and brands that do not have a clear view on sustainability and how to make a positive impact on the world will really be punished the years ahead. So the consumer wants it. That's one big driver of why it's so important to us. The second one is that we also believe that the sustainability topic is one of the strongest drivers of innovation. Every company lives with the brands and the products it sells or the services, and we need to innovate there to get to that growth. For example, by the end of the year, we need to reach our zero deforestation target. I think that by 2025, so in 5 years' time, all our plastic needs to be reusable or recyclable. And then in 10 years' time, in 2030, we really want to be carbon neutral. We even want to be carbon positive. So to get there while at the same time growing requires really breakthrough innovation. And thanks to that vision we have, we drive that innovation that then in return will also have a positive impact on the environment. So a lot of great innovations coming up, by the way, the coming months and the coming years. Another pillar is also that retailers, the partners we work with, expect us to make an impact. If we have our, very practically in Belgium, if I go talk to a Carrefour, a Deleuze, the sustainability topic and their expectations towards us, they are on the table. They expect us to work with them on healthy nutrition, on better packaging. So that's really a strong topic. And another reason for a company to do it is because it has very clear cost benefits. So a lot of reasons on the why, and that leads me to what I would call the business case for focusing on sustainability. I really, from the bottom of my heart, do hope that our shareholders, that the Unilever shareholders are convinced of the vision, and that's why they have shares within the company. But I always say that if you can't convince people with the vision, very hard to do so, then at least try to convince them with money, because money talks to a lot of people. And there we also have very strong evidence and proof that sustainability and purpose drives better commercial business. It brings more growth. We truly see, so we track the growth of brands that communicate hard on sustainability and purpose versus brands that do it to a lower extent. And we do see that those brands grow up to 70% faster than the other brands. And these are insane growth numbers. So imagine what this focus or this growth levels can do for your business and what it can unlock. So that's already one thing in the business case, the money it delivers by focusing on it. The second thing is also that our focus on sustainability is also translated in how we source all our materials. And the move to a more sustainable way of sourcing materials will guarantee the stability of the supply chain. And if you think about it, we use a lot of raw materials because we have a very big food business. We're using milk, we're using grains. All these kind of things are very heavily impacted by climate change. So if we can source more sustainable, become less at risk. So it's actually risk avoidance to invest in sustainability. And that's also something that shareholders like to hear. High growth, low risk. Very practically is year to date, up till now, we saved over 600 million euros in our move towards a more sustainable energy and saving water. So that 600 million euros is a direct saving that we can immediately reinvest in the company and in the people. And then the final pillar, we know from research and from feedback that our vision and our focus on sustainability leads to more trust by all the stakeholders. So both governments, but also internally employees. But one that I always think is quite nice. It also creates a lot of trust with the people you want to attract. and there is a war on talent, and we all want to work with the best people, and you do see that that vision we have as Unilever is one of the biggest reasons why people want to work with us. And in next week, our new trainees are starting, and if you follow their LinkedIn pages, they say, so happy to work for a company that does this. So this is a bit for me and for Unilever, the business case behind sustainability, and gives a clear answer on why we are so much into it. And that is the why. So from the why to the what is it exactly that we do? We are a big company, and we have globally over 400 brands that range from ice cream to drinks to personal care to beauty creams to home care. So we can go very wide because we have a very big impact. So we structured this into 3 pillars. So the first pillar for us is the pillar on health. We want to improve the health and well-being of minimum 1 billion people. If we talk about health, we mainly talk about topics such as improved nutrition, better hygiene, also a very big topic now, hand hygiene in the world with everything that's going on. So that is one big pillar. The second pillar in the plan is to drastically reduce the impact on the environment. This is about reducing CO2, the water usage, mentioned it a few times before. And the third pillar is to improve the livelihood of people and communities. So livelihood to improve the way the life of people, the way people live. And there we have a strong focus on inclusiveness and equal opportunities at both the workplace and outside, with also a lot of brand and programs behind it. So this is really top line in a nutshell. What are the 3 pillars? These are also not random numbers. Everything is translated, everything in these little small buckets is translated into clear targets. So it's not like a high level vision and then we shout a number and an ambition. This is all bottom up calculated on what we can do. This is tracked on a half yearly basis. And every year we communicate the progress against those targets. And that all both internally and externally. So we communicate what we want to do, and then we show our progress to really also keep ourselves accountable to these 3 pillars. So this is a bit, that was the what. So what are the topics we deal with? How do we do this exactly? Without going into every brand detail, but we do this behind the scenes. Unilever is very much involved in all big major organizations that deal with these topics. We do this with knowledge. We do this with a lot of money. We committed again to €1 billion of additional investment to tackle the problems we're facing, and that we do behind the scenes. We also do a lot on the scenes, I would say, via every single brand we have in our portfolio. And we say internally that a brand without an impact does not fit the vision or the strategy. And that means that or brands that do no longer contribute or need to find a way to do so. And if they can't, these are not brands we want to keep within Unilever. Today, every brand within Unilever has a clear purpose, and that always comes with what we call a product truth on the one hand and a planet truth on the other hand. So every brand needs to show that it contributes to a better you. It's for people, the product truth. What does the product do for a person or for a community? And what does the brand do for a better planet? The majority of our money really goes behind these big brands, because we know that with big brands, we reach a lot of people and we can make the biggest impact. And to give an example, I'll pick one, Lipton, for example, the Lipton brand, which is hot tea and iced tea. So from the start, Lipton is really into the sustainable sourcing of the tea. We have our own plantations where we actually created a full ecosystem of sustainably resourced and sourced tea, but also the full community around it. We provide schools, universities, medical care for all the people working on the plants. We provide them with equal opportunities. So that's a big thing. On packaging, Lipton Icy, for example, was the first big soft drinks brand in Belgium last year that went fully rPET, recycled PET. this year and next year, all the plastic will be removed from the teas. So that's a bit of an example on how we do it with these very big brands, and that's the same for Dove, Magnum, or all the others. We also do it by creating, together with the consumer, new brands. So Wim indicated that consumers and people find the sustainability topic very powerful and an important topic. And in the new brands we create, we try to work together with consumers. And they, from the start, also indicate it needs to be in sustainable packaging. We want to make with this kind of brand or with this kind of product, we want to make that kind of impact. And that's how the new brands come to life. Love Beauty Planet, for example, that's a personal care range of shower gels, body creams. It's from the start in recycled plastic, and it's all about making little positive impacts on the planet, because that is what the consumer wanted to achieve there. On a more local basis, I had the opportunity to create my own brand, playing with the water category. It's not fully water, and there I really recognize also what Wim said on the importance of purity of water. But we wanted to create a better alternative to the standard soft drinks, because that's the better for you part. So we have a functional range with vitamins, and we bring it in a different pack that is no longer plastic, just because we wanted to make a statement and to be to actually say in that category that is dominated by plastic, hey, it can be different. And this pack, by the way, and the full life cycle uses is 66% more effective in terms of carbon or CO2. So we do this together with the consumer, with all the new brands we are creating. And then also it drives in a way our merger and acquisition strategy. You see here a few companies and brands we bought in the past, and we will only buy if they have a strong impact, positive impact on the planet. A big example is Ben & Jerry's, you all know it, big in social mission, equal opportunity, but also the sourcing of the milk. And one that is nice to call out is the third one is 7th Generation. This is a range of sustainable home care products that is launched this week also in Belgium. And so for me, it's very important to call out that this is not only on a global level and something that comes from a big head center. This is something that every local brand and every local brand strategy has to do, and purpose and sustainability are really the #1 priorities. We have internally the 5 fundamentals of growth. There's a lot of buzzwords at big companies, but it's the 5 things we need to work on to grow. And the #1 is drive purpose and sustainability. All the rest comes later. So it shows the importance. Where possible, we track it and we measure it. And to just give some examples on a local level in Belgium, I personally work around projects such as loneliness amongst youngsters, a very big problem with youth depression and youth suicides. That's on the Lipton side behind the scenes. We do a lot of sustainable packaging. With a few brands, we work on biodiversity, where we actually support quite heavily biodiversity in both Flanders and the south of the country, Wallonia, or in Belgium. So it's really something local, and it's present actually in everything we do. That strategy, the product and the materials, how we activate with consumers, and how we then also activate it, or how we bring it alive in where you see our products in the supermarkets. So that is a bit the why, the what, and the how. We do know we know and we feel there's huge challenges ahead. It doesn't stop there. We know the big topics. If it's now about carbon emissions, plastics, the things Wim mentioned in his story, we have insane challenges. We know the big topics. We know them quite well. And from a Unilever side on those topics, we showed great progress. It's just not enough. We really need to do more, and we need to do it faster. And for that, we need that system change. And in that system change, that is one thing that I want to call out to everyone here. It's a system change we cannot do alone. And it's something, the challenge is really that we want to make a bigger difference, and we all need to team up. We all need to partner up, and not only with those big names like UNICEF, but all companies together need to partner up to make bigger changes on those big challenges and on those big topics. So this is really my cry and my call out to really, in your company, step up, reach out to other companies, get together, and try to make a difference. And time is limited. I'm really going to wrap it up. Last slide. I just wanted to share some high-level learnings. First one is what I said, sustainability does drive growth. It helps you build trust and it saves costs. So really, there is no business commercial reason to not do it at all. Second thing is, if you want to make an impact, be very clear what that impact or sustainability means for your organization. You don't have to do all those 20 topics. If you want to start small, that's perfectly fine, but do it good. Pick one topic and go deep. The third one is that an important learning is that you need to find that balance between science and consumer perception. On our side, we have more knowledge. We have the scientists, so we know a lot. People and consumers are not at the same level. So if you push too hard, you lose them. And it's very simple. If you lose the people that in the end buy your service and product, you also won't make a difference. So really do it step by step and do it good. Then the fourth thing is that, of course, the top management really needs to be committed to it, and that if that is there, it is really a powerful driver of internal engagement in your company. You will see the dynamics it creates. The other learnings, and they're all written down there, so you can also read them, but the biggest one to conclude is the measurement. I mentioned that before. If you want to make an impact, you need to make it visible. You need to put it out there. You need to say what you're going to do, and then you have to track it. Because without tracking and without your zero measurement point, you can't talk about progress, you can't show you're making progress, and you can't keep yourself accountable. And you need to keep yourself accountable as a business, and that tracking helps a lot. So that was a bit, Wim, from my side. I hope it was clear that it built on your story, and always open to answer questions or to take feedback.
All right. Chris, thank you so much. I think it was really obvious that you are very inspired, and that you're also very inspiring. So that is really important, because I want to touch upon one thing that you said. We have to move fast, and we have to move together. One thing I want to share at the end of this presentation is the world has a plan, and it's called the 17 SDGs. All right. So the world has a plan to fix sustainability, to make sure that, in 2100, our grandchildren or great grandchildren live in sort of the same way that we live today. And so there is a deadline to it, and the deadline is 2030. Okay, if we miss the deadline of 2030, things will go wrong. We know that. The scientists are saying that every 5 minutes. We know that. Okay, the Christiana Figueres, who's the woman behind the Paris Agreement. So she was the woman that that managed all the world leaders and managed to come up with the Paris Agreement. Puts it really very clear and black and white, and she says, this is the decade and we are the generation. All right, so we are the people, we are the generation that will decide how the world will be for centuries to come. So it is important that we all work together, and it is important that we all move fast, because we have this decade is it. All right, that's why the UN calls it the decade of action and delivery. We have to do the actions and deliver to the 2030 deadline. So we decide. It's very important that we understand, that we all know that this generation is deciding in the next 10 years, for centuries to come. So that's why it's great to have people like Chris and have companies like Unilever leading the way. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you to all the speakers, Wim, Gino, Chris, and Niels, of course, for making this such a great webinar. I just want to say to the audience a big thank you as well. And please don't leave yet. I first want to let you know that you can download the slide decks of this webinar. I think the offer is now showing where you can download the slides. Of course, you will receive this afternoon at the latest tomorrow the recording of this webinar, so you can watch it again or share it with your colleagues. And finally, I want to draw your attention again to the sustainability scan. This is the brand scan. This is sustainability audit that you can do with your organization, for your brand, or in your industry. And if you want to have more information on that, you can ask for a free Skype session with Wim. It's about 20 minutes. It's totally non-binding, so don't hesitate to contact us if you are interested. For those who still have time, please stay, because now we will have a Q&A based on all the questions that have been dropped in the chat box. So thanks again for joining, for those who have to leave. And then I suppose, Wim, that we can select the questions and give some answers right now.
Yeah.
All
okay,
right.
Great. Okay, thank you. Chris, I'll let you go through the chat and pick the questions that you want to answer. Gino, I've seen that there are some questions on the movers or movables and the resistors. I'll let you answer those. I will start, so you have some time to look at the questions. I will start with a question on the banks, on the financial industry. So Paul Dowles is asking, what can banks do? Now, the financial industry has a really big and important responsibility, because what the banks do there is they take our money and then and I'm putting this really politely, right? So they take our money and then they invest it so that we get a return. Basically, they decide where money is invested. Okay, so they have a gigantic leverage. They can decide, the big banks can decide to put all their money into sustainable companies if they want to. Yeah. And so we talked about 20, 30, 10 years about moving faster. Banks can really fasten things up. If banks would walk away from the oil and gas, then the carbon issue would be solved much more quicker. Of course, you have to have the investors with you, etc., etc. But that's the responsibility of the banks. The banks need to figure out how they can put if banks say we are sustainable, we support sustainability. Well, they have to put the money where their mouth is, and then they can bring change. The other question is a question from Fanny on the fashion industry. Yes, you read that right. Indeed, there's a problem with the fashion industry. The fashion industry is using up too much water, and that's a problem. And so, and clearly, if we look at the data of our research, then you see that the message to the fashion industry is is dual. It's for this. The first message is you are behind, so you need to fasten up. And you need to work on your sustainability. And the other thing is a change in behavior. When we ask people what is it that they do or how they change their behavior, a lot of people say, I'm not throwing away my clothes. I'm repairing them. So more people are in repairing than in buying new, and that's their way to help solve the problem of the fashion industry. And so, and hence why some brands in the fashion industry are helping, like Patagonia. Patagonia says, the famous ad that says, don't buy this jacket for Black Friday. They just said, bring your Patagonia stuff back and we will repair it and then we will reuse it. Yeah, and we go and we can help you going circular. So that's really that's the message to the fashion industry. All right, Gino, is there a question that you want to take?
I saw some questions on the segmentation exercise. Let me have a look. What's the reason for younger age groups for being more resistant towards sustainable buying behaviors? I think indeed one of these items here is price perception. I already gave the example for the FEBIAC study, but also in this study, I think sustainable, especially for this group, means a perception of more expensive. And we saw what we saw with the baby boomers as well. They have the means, so they can afford to go towards more sustainable purchase. Then is the segmentation based on behavior or attitudes? Well, we actually asked people to report on their behavior. We did not measure their behavior because it's a survey, but it's not an attitudinal thing. We actually really asked them, to what extent do you use your own bag when you go shopping, or to what extent do you recycle or buy secondhand? So it's reported behavior we work.
All right. Okay, good. Thank you. Chris, is there a question that you want to answer?
A very practical one. Unilever slides, yes, I will share, but need to make one adaptation. And there was a suggestion on the link with the meaningful marketing as such. That is there. We couldn't cover that. So be assured I will add a slide to the presentation to show that. I had two maybe questions that I saw popping up was, what are actually the results of those new brands? I find this is an interesting question. Because in a way it goes a bit all directions, but depending on the brand and what you say new. If we talk about the brands we launched very recently, the results are still, it's a slow build up. It's a difficult situation. Why? Because on the one hand, our partners in retail, for example, they expect big results directly. So they expect the results of a Dove, but it's a new segment. So we are happy internally with the result. We have to make sure that we keep partnering with those retailers to have the right expectations. So we need time to build awareness and that. If you look at those new brands that have already exist for a bit longer, for example, the Vegetarian Butcher that we are now also rolling out in Belgium, or the Bubka brand, those are the brands where you have double, triple digit growth. So the results are very strong. And what is stronger for me is that if you ask people the reason for buying, where it's always the first reason is it's a good product, but then closely after that comes because it does something positive for, and it's those small actions. And that you see more with those new brands, and that I find more important actually than the final result. And then there was a question on statiegeld, don't know the English word, on can specifically, but from a Unilever point of view, no personal point of view, I lived in Germany before, so I know what statiegeld can do, because there it's a wide thing. Then from a business perspective, I think that in Belgium, we have a very strong recycling system already. So I think that from a business, we can support statiegeld under the condition that it's a better system than what we have before. So if we can show that what we put in, the new thing we put in place will deliver more than what is in place, then it's definitely a good move, but we don't know that for sure yet. What I do know is that it's really something we need to tackle on a broader European scale. A big example, as from January next year, in the Netherlands, there will be statiegeld. And you already see retailers or wholesalers asking us how it would work if they then would buy the cheaper product in Belgium. So it starts popping up, and I think we need a European answer to that, but it can be a good solution.
All right, thank you, Chris. I will take one more question, and then I think it's time to wrap up. The question is from Amaury van der Zande. It's a great question, and the question is, if we talk about the 74%, does it mean that the shift from the 74 to the 20% will come top down from changing regulations and not bottom up? So what we see is when we ask people what they are doing already today, the two big things that people are doing is recycling their waste and using their own shopping bag, and that's what they do most. So that shows that regulation really works, And the other thing that we've got from the research is about the impact that people say, whatever I do, it's not gonna, it's not gonna help. I will never have the impact to change, the situation. Recycling your waste and using your own shopping bag, that helps because it's very manageable. It's very tangible. It's like, oh, I can do this and I can help a little bit. So regulations work if done well, and there is more regulation, especially from the Green Deal, from the EU, coming our way. So and that's good. It's the role of the governments. It's the role, the responsibility of the governments to put more regulations in this domain. But it will also come bottom up, and the bottom up will come. People will move if companies and governments move, because now really what the people are saying is like, you know, why would I do an effort? Why would I pay more because it's more expensive in perception? Why would I pay more if the governments, you know, and the companies are not doing their bit, you know? So I won't. They have to act first. And so for governments, yes, it's correct. They're not doing enough. For companies, there are plenty of companies that do enough but don't communicate about it. So they should start communicate about it like Unilever and other companies do. And then and the other thing bottom up that will come is the more sustainability becomes a new normal, the more people will move. All right, so that's it. I hope you enjoyed the webinar. Karen, over to you.
Yes, well, once again, I want to thank everyone who joined this webinar and also the speakers. It was great content. And of course, there will be an email containing slide decks, recordings, the brand scan offer where you can read it all again or view it watch it for a second time. So thanks, Gino, Chris, and Wim. And we hope to see everyone soon on another occasion. For the book, finally, the book that will be presented, De Duurzame Belg, by UBA on the 8th of October. So go to UBA and you can subscribe for this book presentation for the book launch. All right, have a great day and see you next time.